Did you know in the 1850s, thousands of people in the United States were dying from drinking milk? In 1858, a New York-based magazine wrote an article how thousands of children in the city alone were dying from drinking milk. They labeled milk as liquid poison and called the distributors milk murderers, and they eventually called this liquid poison swill milk. The cows were fed grain remains from the breweries and lived in filthy conditions in the city. The conditions were so terrible the cows lived a few months and produced a sickly, bluish milk. To cover up the color, the producers added chalk, eggs, flour, molasses, and other substances and sold as pure country milk. Nearly 66% of New York City's children's deaths were caused by this swill milk. The New York Times picked up this story, and soon the nation realized it wasn't a New York City issue. Cities like Boston, Chicago, San Francisco were having the same issues as well. And a quote from the newspaper put it perfectly. Let me read it out to you. For the midnight assassin, we have the rope in the gallows. For the robber, the penitentiary. But for those who murder our children by the thousands, we have neither reprobation nor punishment. They are not penal villains, but licensed traitors. And though their traffic is literally in human life, the government seems powerless or unwilling to interfere. This caused a public uproar and the start to pasteurized milk nationwide. Milk pasteurization solved the problem by not cleaning it up, but by killing it. The problem wasn't that raw milk was this poison, but how many city-based milk producers operated their production in filthy conditions. Rather than improving the environment, the quick fix is to neutralize raw milk altogether. Pasteurization makes milk shelf life friendly, but it doesn't make it gut life friendly. Pasteurization kills the milk's microbiome. Pasteurized milk is inflammatory. The pasteurization process lyses bacteria cells. It's a fancy word for damaging cells to render them useless. The cells are still present in the milk in a deformed fashion where its insides are exposed. When the human body doesn't recognize this foreign object, it gets inflamed and flushes it out. Study shows that pasteurization neutralizes the milk's whey protein and its anti-inflammatory properties. It's probably the reason why pasteurized milk ranks at the top in the allergic foods category and raw milk doesn't. And surprisingly, not a lot of people realize vitamin D is added to milk. Cow's milk is fortified with vitamin D3, which is derived from lanolin, which is found in sheep's wool. There are over 2,500 different types of proteins in raw milk, but they become non-functional in pasteurized milk. Raw milk is loaded with healthy bacteria, naturally produced vitamins, and other nutrients that are lost during the pasteurization process. Raw milk has a high bioavailability, which means more nutrients are absorbed into the body versus the synthetically added vitamins found in pasteurized milk. We previously talked about the milk's microbiome. The naturopathic community has known about its importance for decades, and just recently, mainstream health is recognizing its importance. The microbiome is the community of microorganisms living together with a defined function in a defined environment. Believe it or not, bacteria are your friends. There is a wonderful TED video where Princeton professor Bonnie Basler discusses how her team is learning how bacteria talk to each other. Ms. Basler states that we are made up of 1 trillion human cells and 10 trillion bacterial cells. DNA makes up our genetic code that gives us our charming characteristics, but we have 30,000 genes. Yet we have 30 million bacterial genes playing a role inside or on us. They are our body armor. They digest our food, make our vitamins, educate our immune system to keep bad bacteria out, and many more functions. Experiments show a single bacterium stays non-active, but when grouped together with similar bacteria and they hit a certain threshold, they turn into an active state. So what causes this? They communicate chemically. They secrete these chemicals. If no other similar bacteria is around, nothing happens. And a group, the chemicals mix together and create a communication network. This is why you need to keep a healthy bacteria count so that key systems stay functional, like your immune system. This is why people are concerned about their gut health after using antibiotics, because it kills the bad and good bacteria. You're left vulnerable while rebuilding your gut health. Bacteria, you need it. High quality raw milk is part of the equation. There is an article titled, "What are the odds? 840 times more likely for raw milk drinkers." The article states that the 840 times is the increase in getting food-borne illness from drinking raw milk. The article estimates about 3.2% of the U.S. population consumes raw milk, and between 2011 and 2014, there were 761 illnesses and 22 hospitalizations per year for raw milk drinkers. And 95% of the illnesses are related to salmonella and campylobacteriosis. If we adjusted the number to where 90% of Americans drank raw milk, illnesses would increase from 761 to 23,000. Non-lethal hospitalization increases from 22 to 660. And if we take the annual current U.S. cases for salmonella, there are about 1.3 million infections each year and 26,500 hospitalizations. Now, if you factor in that raw milk at 660 hospitalizations out of the 26,500 is 2.5% of current salmonella cases, and if you take in raw milk at 23,000 illnesses out of the 1.3 million salmonella cases, is around 1.7% of your current cases. So I'll let you decide about the odds in drinking raw milk. As raw milk's popularity continues to grow throughout the United States, state regulators are taking notice. And it's not because they love raw milk, it's more about regulation, which I'm not totally against. Now, regulation will increase production costs, but in return, we're able to create an environment where raw milk production can be safe and clean, and allows us to show critics that we're doing our best to create an environment where the public in general can learn to reap in the benefits of drinking raw milk.